Good morning. Well, I am live, but it doesn't look like my guests, the Reverend Kenneth Cross and Catherine, are live on the screen. Oh, aha, there's Catherine and there is Kenneth. Thank you. And I have to apologise for everybody else out there who's watching.
Yay.
I went to put on my special Christmas jumper this morning, which has a goose flying across, and I'm afraid it has got severely moth-eaten. So I'm very, very sad indeed. I have got Kristen and Kenneth, a lovely, lovely medieval angel flying there around my neck. So I hope you like that.
Excellent.
Well done.
So we're here this morning. Thank you for everybody out there in Somerset listening into this. This is the Reverend Kathleen Flenley, who works in Watchet and Willerton area. This is the Reverend Kenneth Cross, who works in Alcombe area. And I'm going to describe them as very accessible vicars because they're very much there for you. They're very much part of the community. I'm sure there are many other vicars like you across Somerset, but I absolutely love these guys. They're so completely there for everybody in the community. I take my hats off to them. They're doing a wonderful job and they very much support the work we're doing. So they're here this morning to talk about the Christmas story because, of course, we are coming up to Christmas. It's a difficult time for everybody this year because we're not all able to see our loved ones. And if we are isolated and we haven't got families, this is even more difficult than ever. Although I do have to say, here in West Somerset, there's been some amazing work by local charities, and lots of you out there have donated to our Christmas appeal. So we, the village agents in West Somerset, will be arriving on your doorsteps in the next few days with little bags of goodies. So do not worry, the village agents are out there. If you're feeling a bit isolated, expect us as Santa's little helpers arriving on your doorsteps soon. So that's wonderful news for the community. The community have stepped in as ever to provide some money, to provide some presents for those people who really need them now. So anyway, over to, let's just have Catherine and Kenneth just to introduce themselves again. And then let's get on with the broadcast, which is talking about how the Christmas story is really a very relevant story to today. Catherine, do you want to just say a little bit about you?
Well, yes, my beautiful ears. Here we go. Yeah, I'm the associate vicar of Watchet and Willerton, and been doing that now for 3 years, and loving every minute of it, and working with this wonderful lady, Izzy, and sitting at the feet of Kenneth at times, and just sort of relishing in the spirituality that he exudes, which is wonderful. And very much part of the community, and just loving it, really.
Kenneth,
that's me.
Well, thank you. I'll muck my halo now. Thank you, Catherine. It's lovely to see you, by the way. I'm Kenneth Cross. I'm the vicar of Alcombe. I've been in West Somerset for the last 17 years or so. In a previous life, I worked in the college in Minehead. And I'm very proud that we've both got our super Christmas jumpers on today. So it's lovely to be with you all.
So do we want to just get straight into the Christmas story? Because as you both know already, I do think let's keep the broadcast tight because I mean, nobody wants to sit. As much as you two are very beautiful people, I think it can get a little bit boring if it goes on. The most fascinating subject can get a little bit boring. So can we keep it tight? Can we keep it tight? And let's get on with talking about how the Christmas story is very, very relevant to today. Kenneth, did you want to talk about this? Because it was you and I who first started to talk about this, didn't we?
Yeah, and a bit of confusion along the way because Anne Gibbs might have been with us today, and it's a case in point because Anne is working for the West Somerset Food Cupboard, and as I speak, they are busy making up the cardboard boxes into which 250 boxes of food will be made tomorrow. So I said to Anne, look, you carry on doing that, and she was very happy that I said that, and I'm here in her place or with. Which it might have been three of us, so that's me. That's the background of my involvement. Of course, I had the privilege of being involved last time, so maybe I'd be very happy to defer to let Catherine have a little say first, and then I'll follow in because I've already had a little thing on here, and yeah, it'd be lovely to hear from Catherine if you're happy to.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Well, like Kenneth, I'm very much involved with the food bank, as you know, because I was on, I can't remember what it was, last month or the month before, I can't remember now, talking about the food bank and how, again, Marlene Mason, who's the coordinator and leader of the whole thing, is again packing up Christmas boxes. I've got a load in my car ready to zoom off down to Watford after I finish talking to you lovely people. But I think what we're sort of talking about is this Christmas story being relevant. And what's come to mind is that in a way, the angel came to Mary and said, okay, this is what's going to happen. And in those days, she would have had to go into some kind of isolation in a way, because she would have been totally disgraced being an unmarried woman and being pregnant. So that month was going to be pretty hard for her. We've had more than 9 months of isolation, haven't we? And we know how difficult that is. But people have rallied together, and I think that's the important thing about the Christmas message, is that even though we feel isolated, there are people there like Izzy and the food bank and all those other organisations who are out there looking out for those who, for whatever reason, have had to self-isolate. So the isolation theme of the Christmas story starts right back with Mary and being told some news that she found it very difficult to accept. So what do you think, Kenneth? What do you think about the bearing of this Christmas story on today?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that idea of isolation with Mary, it's a wonderful thought, isn't it? And just sort of, it's interesting because as I was thinking about this morning, I was reading in a modern paraphrase from the Gospel of Luke, where it says that Mary wrapped Jesus up and put him to rest in a feeding trough because there was no room for them in the normal living quarters. There's a slight diversion from the usual idea of no room at the inn, but I don't want to get into all that today. But that phrase, there was no room for them in the normal living quarters, just really hit home to me that actually the lack of space for normality has been the feature of this year. And I'm not sure, whatever we get into in 2021, that it for many people it's going to be anything like what we might think is normal living quarters for quite some time. But the idea that however you understand this, that when God comes into the world, he comes into the world, or she comes into the world, however you understand God, it as a baby put in a feeding trough away from the normal living quarters, just for me is about a total identification of God with those who are excluded, isolated, on the edge, whether that's because of COVID or whether it's because of all sorts of other reasons, whether it could be disability, it could be to do with gender, or it could, all sorts of things that can cause people to be excluded, and that somehow that rich story is there of an incredibly vulnerable child on the edge, and the Christian tradition says that's God. I love that idea.
Absolutely, and that lovely image that you've drawn on there, Kenneth, of not being able to go to the normal living quarters, everything being very, very strange for this couple at the most vulnerable time of their lives. And I'm thinking of all those pregnant women who are having to give birth in a very sort of sterile atmosphere, very unfamiliar atmosphere, totally alone, perhaps apart from the time of birth. And there was Mary in that stable or in that hostel, wherever you like to call it, having to do this amazing act of giving birth without her mother, without her father, without all the family around, which would have been what would have happened in the day, without anything to support her in this, her first birth. Really, really stressful time. And so God coming into that situation too is so very meaningful, that even in the most stressful times of our lives, we can know God's presence and God's reassurance. Because what happened then? They were able to receive visitors, unheard of at the moment. But there we are. You know, God's saying, I know what you need, Mary. You need someone to come and see you. And there's Izzy, a living embodiment of an angel. There you go. She's even got an angel necklace. So you can't go bad, but far wrong for that. But I
was
suppose,
actually, sorry.
yeah? No,
I was actually
carry on.
just thinking about the great work of the YMCA supporting homeless people over in Minehead when you were speaking there. And they've done an absolutely sterling job over there. And, you know, there's all sorts of work going on. And also those people who are still out there, they're living in caravans, tents, all sorts of quite difficult living situations. That we and others and you guys, we're doing our best to support those people too. So I think it's worth also thinking, okay, it's feeling tough now, but if we are living with warmth and a roof over our heads and enough food, we are indeed quite lucky, because there are quite a lot of people out there who are not in that situation at all. And as we speak, people's homes are being threatened because they've lost their jobs. People are losing all sorts of things at the moment. So I think it's this focus on what we have got. It's the half full cup, isn't it? Not the half empty cup. We are so lucky if we do have warmth and shelter. And in my case, you know, I do have a job for the Community Council of Somerset. So many of people are really, really not in that situation at all. You two have been out there seeing people, haven't you? Catherine, you actually do deliver boxes yourself for the food cupboard.
I don't deliver boxes from the food bank or bags to houses. What I do is I collect from people's generosity.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I've been to the co-op. I've collected 3 bags, very heavy bags full. Yesterday, somebody came and knocked on my door and left a bag. Went up to the shop the other day. There was another bag. This is happening all over the place. People are just being so generous. And of course, if we go back to that Christmas story, we hear about those 3 kings, don't we? Those 3
That's
wise
what I was thinking.
people.
Are these people the wise men? Are they, unbeknownst to themselves, acting? Are they the shepherds? Are they the wise men? All our community members who are working together to support those most in need?
Absolutely. They're responding to a need. They're responding to a call. They're responding to light in a dark place. And I think if you put one tin in a box, what you're doing is you're putting in a light to shine in somebody else's life that might be a bit dark. So yes, we've got, I think that's a really good allusion. There you are, Izzy. You're a theologian in the making.
I think
Yeah.
people do have felt that, haven't they? They have felt, the warmth of giving. I think that's been really, that's a fantastic thing that's been highlighted. The spirit of compassion and feeling, you guys would be saying, this is God coming into their life, feeling the power of compassion to get out, to donate and to support those most in need. That has been a huge positive side, if you like, of this year. If there is a positive side, that is this, I think, feeling the power of compassion.
Yeah, I think in years to come, I think we're going to look back on 2020 and have perhaps a different perspective for what we have when we're in it. I do really think that there's something, I'm just moving beyond food to the more general gaping needs in the world and in our communities to do with social isolation. You might be able to feed yourself, but you might not be able to see people. And there's a whole range of areas in which people are really vulnerable and fragile. And I think that some of the national narrative has been, we've got to protect Christmas at all costs, and I don't want to get into that discussion. And of course, where we can celebrate, we should. But there's something about the vulnerability of the time in which we live, which actually for me makes Christmas incredibly authentic this year. It actually makes it more meaningful, not less meaningful, because the original Christmas story is about people who couldn't find a space before the child was born, and then a couple of years after, when the child was a toddler, there were refugees handed off to Egypt. So it raises the issue of people who are refugees today, people who are excluded today. That actually that whole identification, which is there in that Christmas story, it makes the story far more meaningful than this sort of happy, glitzy Christmas, which I think is under threat this year. I'm not sorry that's under threat, because I think it's a complete distortion of what the true Christmas story is about. There is joy in it, of course there is, but if it's got to be authentic joy, it's related to compassion and brokenness and weakness and vulnerability and all these things, which actually are part of being human. So I think this Christmas is, and not just this Christmas, this year could be a year where we find our souls again.
I think that is a wonderful thought, because, as you know, I'm a huge promoter of spirituality and the churches in West Somerset, because I'm very aware of that spiritual bankruptcy, and people are just crying out. They're crying out to, take something home and into their heart, something authentic that's not connected to the superficial life and the superficial values that are generally perpetrated by whatever the social media, etc., etc. So I think you're dead right, Ken. People are crying out. They're crying out for what you're talking about.
Yes,
did you want to say? Sorry, yes, Catherine.
No, I would agree with that. And I'll just give you one example. We just on Saturday, it was Saturday, yes, we had Willerton Christmas. Now, normally that's a huge affair with stalls and Santa giving out gifts and glitz. And last year, a group of us from St. Peter's went to sing carols, and not one person stopped by us. They wanted to go indoors. They wanted to get the glitz and the glamour and the gift and all that. This year, of course, it was very different. There was a hot roast, yes, and there were us singing carols. That was all there was. And we had a huge crowd there, longing to meet each other and to sing, or just to listen to singing. And we were singing the Christmas story, and they were singing the Christmas story, and we were coming together in that, as you say, Izzy, that spiritual side of Christmas, as opposed to the glitzy, frivolous side of Christmas. And that to me spoke volumes. You know, it really did have that spiritual side that he was talking about.
I was thinking there of the image of a fairground being an image of, you know, kind of modern life and all this glitzy stuff, and then you've got like the old-fashioned rocking horse, and we're kind of aiming to get back to that old rocking horse that, you know, somebody's made for us, because they, you know, like my dad made me. I've just got some old pictures out of this funny old black and white Charger my dad made me. They weren't well off. He was a young teacher in the 60s. And you know, it's wonderful. And it meant so much more to me looking back that he went into his shed and he made that for me. And I've been hearing this week, I've just been to pick up my daughter from Brighton, and I've been hearing about the housemate who has knitted them all socks. And what better gift than somebody sitting and making you, very simple, a pair of, you know, socks. She has got wool donations and she's done that. And I have to say on that note, there's been some wonderful ladies who are associated with Phoenix in Watch It, and they, along with others, have knitted blankets that are going out in West Somerset this week as very special Christmas gifts. So I have to say that is what a wonderful, wonderful thing to be receiving all that love that's been knitted into that blanket. Isn't that absolutely fantastic?
It's interesting, actually, you saying that, because one of the things that struck me this year, not just Christmas, there's been moments, I don't know, Catherine, whether you've experienced the same. There's been moments where I've had concerns about some people pastorally. I've been thinking, gosh, they're on their own. One lady comes to my mind immediately. Seemed to be on her own, and I, you know, at one stage it was really difficult, other than a doorstep knock and leap back to check she was okay. But then you discover, when you dig into it a little bit, that actually so and so's been and dropped some food off. Somebody else has done this. Somebody else has, and you discover that actually people you think, you know, and then of course me can take myself far too seriously. Almost, you know, it's not actually all down to me, and actually discover that there's just people out there who are just doing stuff quietly. It can be practical, it can be a phone call, it can be going for a walk from a distance if it's somebody who's able, and you discover there's just lots of stuff going on, and it's those simple little gifts that have been given throughout this year, which I think have been they're there to, and in a way, if you don't want to make a song about it too much, because the whole point is it is hidden, and in some ways it should stay hidden, really, because we don't want to turn it into a circus, you know, but it's something very precious going on.
I have a lovely story of somebody I've known for a long time. He's volunteered. He has been through a huge amount of trauma in his personal life. And for him this year, he's quite isolated gentleman, but he is out there just saying to me, I just want to help people. And he is just popping bits of shopping to his neighbours. He's helping with dog walking, and he's just giving people a dog walk. And he is getting on with that, exactly as you said, Ken, despite everything. I can't even begin to tell you the level of trauma he's been through, but he is using almost that dark experience to now fill him full of light. From the darkness has come this fantastic light in him, and he's getting out doing an absolutely marvelous job. And he's just giving me a little ring now and again, tell me what he's up to, and he's just sharing a few stories. Absolutely incredible work done by this one individual, and he, I think, is one of many, Kenneth.
Absolutely, Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, the whole Christmas message is about light coming into darkness. If you've got a Bible and you look at John's Gospel, which is in the New Testament, it's the fourth book along. Right at the beginning, it's talking about Jesus being the light coming into the world, and anyone who does what your contact is doing and visiting other people is embodying that light coming into somebody else's dark world and just showing a glimmer, which is so important in these times. So if you want to come to a carol service, you can. There's one at St. Peter's at 4 o'clock on Saturday and one at St. Decumans at 4 o'clock on Saturday. And we're going to have bonfires. And there you are. There's that light in a dark world. So there's a little plug. For nothing.
Thank you. And I should, by the way, I should hasten to add, this lovely gentleman I'm supporting is not going into people's houses. He is following COVID rules. He's very aware of that. So I should just add that for any of you out there thinking, hang on, what's going on? He's very aware. He's very aware. Well, that sounds that's brilliant news that those church services are on, Catherine. And I will, because as I say, I am doing some door knocking and waving this week. I will be telling people about that because that's a lovely thing to share. It's in the Watch It in Willerton area, so that's fantastic. What are you doing over in Alcombe area, Kenneth?
Yeah, we do have some stuff. We've got a carols by candlelight on the Tuesday, the 22nd at 6, and we've got a Christmas Day service. We're also, I'm not advertising times and places for obvious reasons, but we've got some carol singers going to the courtyards of 2 or 3 of the local care homes to sing through the windows. Yeah. So we've got a bit of that going on. So various stuff. I mean, if people are interested, we can get in touch and we can give them more details. We're having to operate something like a booking system for carol services, sadly. But that's just the way things are at the moment. So I'm sure the same with Catherine. I mean, we're doing things as safe as we can in the churches, which a bit of extra work. But it is light. Yeah. But may I show you a picture which I have up on my wall? It's by Luini Bernardino, and it was done somewhere in the late 1400s, early 1500s. See if I can get it there.
Oh,
can
that's
you see that?
Beautiful.
And although, of course, if we take the story seriously, Jesus and Mary would both have been people of colour. But putting that to one side, I think the artist in his time in late medieval Italy captures something of that person-to-person humanity, which I think is right at the heart of the story. And even if you don't do religion and stuff, and we're not here to promote our churches in that way, I think there's something deep in here which just speaks to what's going on. And I suppose my question for me is, who am I identifying with, the Mary or the Jesus? And, the giving of one to the other, and there's a lot of questions in the picture, but it really speaks to me. It's always spoken to me, this picture, so I thought I'd just share it with you. It might be something you can take away.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Kenneth. So, Are you both happy if we leave it there? I believe Hannah's going to play this as a rerun on Christmas Day, so don't worry, those lovely Christmas jumpers will not only be displayed across Somerset this week, but also on Christmas Day.
There we go, you can see it properly. There you go.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. So thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you both in person, albeit from a distance, in the very near future. Thank you so much for sharing the Christmas story with us today.
Thank you,
Thank
Izzy.
you very much indeed. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you, Kenneth. It's been lovely seeing you.
Ditto.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
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 Bye.